Okay, this is Susan Bassey. I'm outside the family courthouse in San Jose, California. This is located in Santa Clara County. And I want to see if my sound is coming through okay because I have a pink mic. Thanks for somebody who sent that to me because I've been having mic trouble and I want to see if this mic is working. So when we get some people in here, we're going to go on a little walk and I'm going to do a little talk and spill some iced tea. Because for those of you who know me, I don't drink coffee, I drink iced tea. And so we're going to spill some iced tea. Hello, Lisa. Can you hear me okay? Good. Okay. So last week, we had some problems. I think we still get a little interference with our recording down here at the courthouse. But I'm down here because I want to tie in some of our reporting. A lot of you ask, how is this reporting making a difference? Is anything changing? And I've been doing this for 10 years. This courthouse opened. This is the family courthouse in downtown San Jose. And this courthouse opened in 2016 at a cost of $283 million to taxpayers. The judges have come and gone in there, but the problems remain the same. And at the center of all of it is a core group of attorneys. So I wrote an article this weekend. And for those of you who know, I do not like writing articles. It's time consuming. It's a lot of work, and you have to leave so much on the editing room floor because when you're writing an article, people only have an ability to read so much. You have to keep it on point. It's a real skill, and attorneys are known to have to learn to write in law school. Apparently, we're seeing a trend throughout the country where judges aren't reading papers, especially when they're filed by attorneys, by pro pers, people having to represent themselves in court. So I thought I would go over some of the things that we've seen this last few years and where our reporting has made an impact. So this morning, there are some court watchers in there. Whoever said I love reading your articles, thank you. I hope you appreciate it because Puppy does not like when I have to write. I'm going to turn around because there are people coming back and forth, and we never know which attorneys we're going to catch on camera. And last time when I did a live stream down here at the courthouse, I'm going to tell you that was Friday. I've made that for members only. I'm going to start doing that. You'll be able to watch this initially if you catch one of my lives, but if you don't catch the live, I'm going to turn it to members only because in that video, Puppy was having some problems. I was having some problems. It was a little chaotic. And so I thought I'm going to leave that for members only. And I'm going to try to give you guys as much information as possible. I appreciate all of you who subscribe and comment to this platform because you have helped build us. We're on our way to 82,000. And whoever just made that comment about attorneys writing, I'm going to get into that in a second. But I'm going to spill some tea on the attorneys because what we always see when we're reporting on the courts is everything that goes on in the court papers, in the courtrooms when we have people watching or we get the transcripts. But what we don't ever really talk about is what happens outside the courtroom, how attorneys can charge too much and not really give you the legal representation that they should. And I think that what is staggering, I have people coming in from behind me, so we'll just leave it that way for a minute. So whoever said ban me, please. You'll be banned when I turn this to members only in a day or so. So what is always shocking to me is what goes on outside the courthouse. When I get to the courthouse in the morning, I do a little walk with Puppy. I see what I see. If I can catch some attorneys, whoever said ban me, if you want to be banned from my channel, I'm not going to do that unless you violate the rules. And whoever said Mr. Epstein ban me, I do want to talk about, we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about what the rest of the country is talking about, and that's those Epstein files. Because yesterday, Forbes magazine published information about who was in those Epstein files, and it relates directly to this courthouse. And it involves a big couple related to tech that visited the island, and I confirmed that they did. And these individuals had a private judge. And so, for those of you who follow this channel, you know that I have been reporting on private judging because I believe that it is the privatization of our court system. And it started in family court where few people would notice. There's no media attention, there are no cameras in these courtrooms, and attorneys have been duping their clients into private judging for years, promising them that it will be cheaper and faster than going to public court. And that, whoever said that they were relieved their name was not in there, we're going to talk about that. Just because somebody was associated with those files or their name appears in the emails, does that mean that there was wrongdoing? Or does it mean that they knew or should have known something wasn't right? And I think that's what happened with this couple. And I'm not going to go over their name right now, but they are connected to my private judging. I'm going to turn around because here comes an attorney. Let's see how they do with. Oh, no, it's not an attorney. It looks like ProPers. Let me look that. Let me size that up a little bit. Yeah, it doesn't look like an attorney. Okay. Not one that I recognize anyway. So when we see these things crop up, it's like cropping up in public records. And lately I've been doing a lot of public records requests, and the government has been delaying those records. So it's actually a crime for the government to delay, alter, or conceal or obstruct any public records. It's in the government code in California under 6200. And years ago, I caught members of the state bar doing that on records related to Judge James Towery, who used to sit in this courthouse. And I believe that some of our reporting resulted in him retiring early. And we've talked a lot about how my reporting has probably nudged judges to retirement, but that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It's not sending anybody to prison. It's not getting indictments, and it's not changing the system the way that it should. Okay, we're going to just flip around. I think this is the Brinks person, but we'll flip around in case some attorneys come out. Okay, so now I can see your comments a little bit better. So let me go over those records. The very first records request I made formally, because I had been a journalist, I had been reporting on little things in the community, but nothing political, nothing controversial, and certainly not the courts. And so in 2016, I started really reporting on the courts, and my first records request was to the state bar of California, and they had just become under the California Public Records Act. I'm going to turn my camera because there are some attorneys coming out here. I think I'm just going to stand down here at the end, and then you guys can see what I see. Somebody pointed out in my last live stream, Travis Whitfield slipped by me and I didn't recognize him. Peppy would rather walk, but Peppy, we're going to stay here for a minute. Okay. So that records request was for all the pre-employment information of an attorney by the name of James Towery. And I asked for some other records at the state bar, but eventually what I got all of Judge Towery's pre-employment records to the state bar. We got his emails to and from people from the state bar. We got his taxi cab receipt. We got a lot of information that I didn't know we could get. So it was really exciting. When I get a public records request and it comes back with records, it is absolutely magical. And so I'll flip it around until they move. So I've been sharing with you my records request because all of you have different issues, whether it's with the local government, whether it's with police, or whether it's with family courts, civil courts, or criminal courts. And so I try to explain how you get records and find out information that may be relevant to you. A lot of people have asked me about getting meta tag data from the courts and everything else. And some of that is just something that I am not going to start diving into right now. There are problems in this courthouse. In fact, I've had 5 attorneys call me just in the last couple of weeks about, and this is kind of funny, but there is a local rule. And remember, I saw Mr. Checkpoint over the weekend. He was interviewing a Los Angeles police officer, and the Los Angeles police officer, they were talking about masks on ICE and whether they were going to enforce a local ordinance or whatever it is. And the police officer said, we're not enforcing it. It's not a law that went through the state legislature. So that's similar to when we're here at this courthouse. And as you all know, the judges here have issued rules after they started kicking the public out of courtrooms and violating people's rights. They issued and served on me an order that I can't record on that property right there. I can't cross this line. So Puppy and I stay on this line on the sidewalk, and it's a little bit of a Streisand effect for them. That means that, okay, you don't want me doing my news gathering and my job here on the side at the court outside the courthouse, then I'm going to stand on the sidewalk and I'm going to record all the attorneys and all their clients, and we're going to talk about them. We're going to spill the tea. We're going to talk about what we know. We're going to talk about who's throwing their clients under the bus, and we're going to talk about uh, other issues that will help you, because I can't report on every case and every injustice. Okay, I'm going to go back and flip it around so I can read your comments. Here's, I don't know if this is an attorney. I don't recognize him. There's some others coming down the street too, so I'll just keep pointing this way. This guy has some kind of badge, and he's looks like he's not going to the courthouse. Okay, and then there's some more people coming. But I'm going to stay and I'm going to talk about the records that I've gotten. So the first records I got from the state bar were about Jim Towery before he became Office of Chief Trial Counsel. And what that is that is the job where attorneys at the state bar decide if other attorneys should be disciplined for being unethical or violating the law or the rules. And one of those issues is if they take money improperly from their clients. It's basically stealing. If you give an attorney a retainer and the attorney doesn't use the retainer, doesn't do the work, and then doesn't return your money, they've effectively stolen your money. We also see them get settlements and large sums, and when they do get those settlements, we find that sometimes they don't return them to their clients. So one of the worst attorneys for that was Thomas Giardi, and he was in Los Angeles County, and he was the attorney from the area who had taken over the case from the little attorney that Erin Brockovich was working for. She found all those people with PG&E. And that movie, I don't know what you all remember from that movie and what you appreciate, but Erin Brockovich, there's a scene where she's balancing her kids on her hip, and she's in a little tiny water district office getting information about PG&E, and she finds a lot of things in those public records, and she's getting access to public records in that. And that has always been something that has inspired my work, that public records, we pay to produce them, we pay the government to make them, there are records, and the public has a right to them. So I get really upset over and very frustrated when the government has policies such as they'll only keep emails for 2 years, they'll destroy security cameras, body cameras, or whatever they do. That's frustrating because that is a policy, and sometimes that seems selective. Here in this courthouse, after my hand was broken by a sheriff deputy when I was being prosecuted, the court came up with some of the video from that day, but the video that proved there were other people recording in that courthouse and that the police officers had selectively come after me was conveniently destroyed. And the court then stated that it had a policy of recording over their security cameras every 2 weeks. So keep that in mind, because if you're wanting to get courthouse security from something that happened in this courthouse, you probably won't be able to get it for some time. And if you don't do a preservation of evidence within 2 weeks, you won't be able to get it. So that's one kind of record that you can get. You can get the security camera. We know it exists. We know because of discovery. So anyway, that Puppy's saying hello. She's going to be the courthouse greeter today. So that's one kind of record. The other records that we get from the court are not under the California Public Records Act, but it is under the California Rules of Court 10.500, because courts are not under the Public Records Act. They're part of the judicial branch, and so those records are gotten differently. And I started requesting records from this court several years ago, about 2016 as well. And from that, we were able to find that judges were sitting on all these little committees. And then we found the Bar Bench Media Police Committee that they were attending only in Santa Clara County, because no other county has similar records. And that was when judges used grand jury services money and met every single week. There was a woman named Brittany Hewlig who was in charge of the grand jury, and she's in charge of the civil grand jury. And she and other court staff used public funds to organize, or whoever just said my lawyer's doing something about deposition. I want to tell you something that I heard this week from a lawyer that was really great, and it'll help you if you are having to direct your lawyer or appear in court. It was a trial lawyer talking about how to cross-examine those paid experts. So I'll get to that in a second. So the records that I've gotten from this court have included records related to minors counsel. Those are the attorneys who are court appointed to represent children, no constitutional right for it. They charge hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to parents and taxpayers every year. And there's really no legitimate reason for them. And 90% of the time, we find they're not needed. They cause more conflict, and they are bankrupting parents and taxpayers. But more importantly, it is their power that is at issue. Their power is when they get in a case, your own attorney will stop representing you with a zealous defense and really pander to these minors counsel. So court administrative records are other records that we can get. And then, of course, there are police records, and there are records that we get from local agencies. For instance, when we went recently to San Jose, and I posted a video about the woman that we requested the records from there. What was interesting is I've gotten responses from that, and they are saying that JAMS, the world's largest private judging business in the country, and their San Jose office is not paying their business license. And that includes for retired judges, who include Jamie Jacobs May of Los Gatos, Vanessa Zucker, who was a family court judge and a criminal court judge in this courthouse, in this court system, and Catherine Gallagher, who was once the presiding judge of the family courts and went into private judging. So again, I can only report the information. I can show you how to get the records, and then we're going to have to decide if people are mad enough about what we're finding to want to do something about it. I think that the fact that these attorneys are not, as a Los Gatos resident, I was outraged to find that Private Judge Blum was not paying his taxes, and he was acting in code enforcement for the town. And the town is still not giving me the records that they should give me about that. And part of that includes records related to the contract attorney for the code enforcement hearing that Mr. Blum was in. Now, here's the fun part. I'm going to go back to turn the screen around. There's nobody actually here right now, so I'll just wait a second. So when I was recording here, a lot of people watch my live stream. Some are members. No, I'm going to flip back around because, okay, if you see me flip around, it's just because I see something I think you guys should all watch too. So the town of Los Gatos is now actually considering putting in flock cameras again. So as all these cities are getting in trouble for not, here we go, we're going to flip around. So as all these cities are getting in trouble for having flock cameras and violating our privacy and collecting our data, and we're debating whether or not ICE is going to be given access to that data, Santa Cruz and other cities are claiming that they're not going to use that technology anymore, but Los Gatos, of all places, is going to use it again. And Los Gatos, again, I always go back to, they were the ones that got caught rigging traffic tickets with Judge Dancer, who was Catherine Gallagher's husband. So Judge Dancer was rigging traffic tickets for the benefit of people in the Los Gatos community with the Los Gatos police. And he was indicted. He was convicted. He was stripped of his pension because, and I want to go over that because that was something that made me a little mad when I found that out. So are able to, when judges get indicted related to something they've done on the job, they risk losing their pension if it's a felony. If it's a misdemeanor, like, I don't know what would be a misdemeanor in the courthouse for a judge, but if it's a misdemeanor, they might not lose their pension. And remember, we talked about Tyson Green. He is the Santa Clara police officer who was running a chop shop. And we got public records and we got court records, which are another kind of record that you actually have to get through the courthouse. And Tyson Green, I'm glad I have my mic on right now because that's really loud. And Tyson Green was running a chop shop. It was a San Jose retired cop who snitched on him, turned him in. He was criminally prosecuted. He was convicted of a felony. I think he might have taken a plea deal. I have to go back and look at that. And as he did, the Santa Clara County government hired him to do code enforcement. He also did not lose his pension because the crime he committed was not done on the job related to being a police officer. So that is how all these records kind of relate. And what I'm going to start doing too is talking about these attorneys and what we hear outside of court. If they don't want me recording outside the courthouse and we don't have cameras in court, I'm going to start standing here at least once a week and spilling the tea on attorneys and what we know and what we're hearing. Because before you go pay these people a lot of money and think that they're going to represent you and that they're following the law in the courthouse, I want you to know the reality. I want you to know what's really going on in that courthouse. And part of that connects back to our records requests. So, hi, Tom Shaw. Nice to see you in here. Hey, Tom, did you tell me you're in New Zealand? Because if you're in New Zealand, I actually have somebody that had a custody case out of San Mateo and Santa Cruz. It's one of my videos. I think it's on Instagram. And she's actually in New Zealand right now, and I'm coaching her how to go get files from the family court in New Zealand. And if we can do that, and she said she was so excited to think about that. And I said, hey, go get me video, go find out what their rules about recording in courts are in, get the court files from things you want to see, and let's see how they do it in New Zealand, because everywhere is a little bit different. But she's going to go investigate a divorce down in New Zealand. So I think I remember, Tom, you said you were in New Zealand. If I got that wrong, I'm sorry. I know some of you are from New Zealand. So and that's how this is all connected. And the last time I did a live stream here, somebody noticed Travis Whitfield in my live stream. I didn't catch that, but you guys caught it. And when I turned off my video after Jim Hoover got in his Uber ride share, I thought he was going to go jaywalk like all the judges and attorneys do here. A woman said to me, "Are you Susan Bassey?" And she has a civil case here. She asked me to meet her, and I really don't have the time to meet with everybody about every case and an injustice. But if I can provide you information in these live streams that is useful to you, then I'm doing my job, and that's really what it is. So, who said? Oh, Tom, you're in South Dakota. That's so funny. Not New Zealand. Who's from New Zealand? I know one of you guys that comes in here regularly is from New Zealand. Okay, South Dakota. Well, actually, Tom, isn't that where Kristi Noem is from? So that's kind of related to the ICE activity that's happening here. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of protests. There's a lot of things you're going to see on social media. And we've been doing records requests to all of these different departments. And the one thing that I really wanted to talk about today is that what we are seeing with our local government. So the story that I had to write about this last weekend was the case involving a little social media journalist. He goes by the handle Eastside San Jose Times, and he's mostly on Instagram and Facebook. And he's an old radio personality. He's not a trained journalist, but he really does a remarkable job of providing information to the public about his local community. And East Side San Jose is not very far from here, but it's probably one of the more disadvantaged areas of the community. There's a lot of gang violence there, there's a lot of poverty there, and it is ripe for ICE coming there. So what's interesting is that the city council member over that district is Peter Ortiz. And for the last 3 years, Peter Ortiz first filed a civil harassment restraining order against the social media journalist, and Judge Van Dat, who actually, she's a commissioner. Commissioner Van Dat, who sits in that courthouse over there doing the unlawful detainer and restraining order cases, issued a temporary restraining order preventing the journalist from speaking about a public official. And that was probably one of the most outrageous things I have ever seen. So if you follow any legacy national media and they're talking about what's going on with politics and arresting and silencing of journalists, searching their homes without telling a judge that they're a member of the press, that's what legacy media focuses on. And that's what I focus on here, because it doesn't just happen on a national level, it happens in every community. And Peter Ortiz was once charged with a pretty serious crime, and he also was known to have gang associations, and he got put into judicial diversion. And then he ran for San Jose City Council right after the George Floyd events, and he was elected. He was elected on a social justice platform. And 1 year into being a city council member, he filed a restraining order against this social media journalist, which I actually thought was really outrageous, because it doesn't matter if you're how you're silencing speech. So think about police officers when they arrest somebody who's recording them. They're trying to silence speech. They're trying to silence who is showing the public what these police officers are doing and the culture of a department. And so the fact that Peter Ortiz would get elected on a social justice platform and then use the courts to try to shut up a journalist just kind of really got to me. So as a reporter, I can't cover every case, but this one was an important one to cover. So I covered the trial court hearings, which were in that courthouse as well. The case got moved to Judge Eric Geffen, who is now the assistant presiding judge. He is also, I know a lot. I'll spill the tea on what he did as an attorney. He was a criminal defense attorney. He was hired by the NFL to represent somebody who was making claims about a 49er. And so I covered that case. I reported on it. I got attorneys to comment on the law behind it. The Commissioner Van Dat has a very bad reputation here among the attorneys, but also among people who have to represent themselves in unlawful detainers and civil harassment cases. She is a commissioner, not a judge. She has some politics and some religious background that are troublesome for some people. And so it really was disturbing to me that she would issue such an unconstitutional restraining order against a local journalist who was just providing community information. Now, the information that he was providing was raising flags about concerns about the conduct that not only Mr. Ortiz, but also Omar Torres was engaged in, related to children, related to libraries, related to the LGBTQ community, which is a very protected community by the politics here. So that journalist politics, he wore them on his sleeve a little bit. And I don't wear my politics on my sleeve because they change all the time. And both parties are guilty of corruption. Both parties have appointed judges that have been incredibly problematic. Whoever just said I subscribed, I appreciate it very much. We're on our way to 82,000. And so what we so I continued reporting, and what was really the most shocking was that a big law firm, a big First Amendment law firm, who has charged people hundreds of thousands of dollars in family law cases and has represented a lot of really powerful tech execs and was connected to that nonprofit Women SV. The law firm is the McManus Faulkner Law Firm. they decided to represent Peter Ortiz once the social media journalist hired an attorney and filed a slap. So I want to go over what a slap is. A slap is when people, you get sued for something and you say you can't sue me for that because it is protected activity. It is a matter of public interest, it's in a public forum, it's not harassment, it's not defamation, it's opinion, whatever it is. There are a number of reasons, and California and many other states came up with this to prevent people from, it's kind of a David and Goliath law that has been hijacked by attorneys. And when I say that, the reason I say that is it was really intended to protect speech, but attorneys have used it to say, you can't sue me for something because of litigation or immunity that I have in that appointment. And that applies to minors counsel. If you sued a minors counsel, they would try to claim that they were court appointed and therefore they had immunity and you can't sue them. And so this was an interesting case. The McManus law firm came in representing a controversial city attorney who was trying to silence a journalist, and Judge Geffen got assigned to the case. I have followed a lot of Judge Geffen's cases. He has an uncomfortable relationship with the 49ers here. He has done some things that I am very critical of. And as a journalist, I don't just report you the facts, but I give you my opinion on what I see. And so I actually, and the attorney for Mr. Ortiz has once represented me. And so we expected that that attorney might see some retaliation against in the lawsuit and could lose the slap, but he didn't. The Judge Geffen ruled that it was First Amendment protected activity. And this is an example of what I'm talking about, that attorneys and judges don't always break the law. They don't always violate rights. They don't always get it wrong, but they get it wrong enough that it creates a sense of outrage and injustice for some people. So then Peter Ortiz did something that I actually thought was rather shocking. He took the denial of his slap, and the McManus Faulkner law firm, with 4 of their attorneys, took it up on appeal. And so a little city council member who's making $130,000 a year took this case up on appeal, clogged our trial courts, clogged our courts of appeal, and spent 3 years of taxpayer money to try to silence a journalist. And on Friday, as all the prep for the Super Bowl, Peppy's tangled in her leash. We're going to turn a little bit. So on Friday, as all of the issues about the Super Bowl and ICE and the San Jose mayor announcing that he's going to run for governor was coming out, that little opinion came out. And it's unpublished. And unpublished means that it won't be cited in law books. And part of that might have been retaliation against the attorney, because for an attorney to get a published decision on a First Amendment issue, that's a big deal. That attracts clients for them. So that might have been a little retaliation from the appellate court. And the appellate court panel, when you go to the Court of Appeal, you get a certain number of judges hearing your case, usually 3. And the panel in that case were Justice Mary Greenwood, Justice Cynthia Lee, and then another Justice Rodriguez, who was appearing virtually. And I'm going to drop more on that video, but Justice Greenwood and Justice Lee started in this courthouse as family court judges. And I can tell you, they violated the law in a number of cases that we saw. They made some horrific decisions, and the people who were involved in those cases never had the money or the attorney to take it up on appeal. And so that's what really is tone deaf for me, is when a politician uses the courts to try to silence speech. There really needs to be a backlash about that, because Peter Ortiz, instead of focusing on his job, which is only city council, he doesn't disclose that he does anything else. We're gonna, someone, can we moderate that person? I got that one out. So can you guys, I know I have some moderators in here. If you could take care of that, I'd appreciate it. And again, the rules for this platform is that if you get political, you make personal attacks, or you want to use my platform for defaming somebody else, you're going to be removed. We're here talking about the courts. And we're talking about what's going on outside the courts since they don't want to let cameras in the courthouse. So I did report on that. I posted that article in my community posts. I posted a 1-minute video of the McManus lawyer outside the Court of Appeal. And I'm going to post a video tomorrow morning showing you what it means to report on a case for 3 years, to follow it through the trial court, to read all the court papers, to attend all the court hearings, to wait for it to get to the Court of Appeal, to go to the oral argument. And not only is that a huge burden for a reporter, you can understand why we don't have reporters covering these cases in family court. There are just too many of them. So I continue to try to cover the family court cases because I find the greatest injustices go on in these courthouses where there are no juries and there is only a judge watching. And one of those judges was the judge who was once the office of the Chief Trial Counsel, James Towery. And I talked about those public records at the beginning of that. I think that our reporting contributed to his retirement. He not only made some horrific rulings as a judge, the most complaints I had came from him and then shifted to Judge Hendrickson, who is now retiring, and somebody who asked about that. She is retiring, but she is still on the bench training Judge Yvette Pennypacker. And she is the daughter-in-law of another judge named Pennypacker, who we know has worked up as far away as in Sonoma County as an assigned judge. So that's why we're reporting. But one of the things that was, oh, we've got a police officer here. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to zoom up. Okay, so in family court, we often see police officers coming in to testify as witnesses in DV cases. In a DV case, the litigants aren't able to, he might be a traffic court. I take that back. It's not just family court anymore. You do traffic court here. If the police officer shows up and testifies, you're probably going to be in trouble. If they don't show up, then you're probably going to get out of your ticket and your case is going to get dismissed. So this courthouse is not just family court. It's also traffic court. It's also mental health court and drug diversion court. There's a lot of things that go on in there. And it's always interesting to me that we mix that up with family court. So in the family, and it's labeled the Family Justice Center, and yet we have all these other hearings going on in there. And people have to bring their children in while mental health court's going on, and that's sometimes kind of a problem as well. So the back to Judge Towery. Judge Towery, when he was at the state bar, the Ninth Circuit, which is the highest federal court before the United States Supreme Court, issued an order that the state bar needed to investigate Tom Giardi. And as they issued that order, James Towery was coming in as Office of Chief Trial Counsel. And he got that order and he recused himself or removed or disqualified himself from that, but not before he assigned a law firm to investigate the complaint. And the law firm acted like police internal affairs. And what they did was they dismissed the case very quickly and said there was nothing wrong. We later found out that Tom Giardi had bribed appellate court judges, trial court judges, governors, donated to political campaigns, and had corrupted the state bar so that they ignored hundreds of complaints. I think it was over 200 complaints about him. And so Judge Towery was at the center of that. And there was a former California senator by the name of Joseph Dunn, and he was at the state bar at the time, and there was some infighting going on. They were both Democrats. They were both working for the bar. But what ended up happening was Joe Dunn blew the whistle on some of the corruption at the state bar. And so we, through a public records request, ended up getting all those records of the infighting between Joe Dunn and Jim Towery. And we couldn't get those records previously, not through a public records request, because they would have been considered adjudicative records, and they went to JAMS for arbitration. And there were some problems with those records that we saw. And so that is the infighting, and we look for the infighting. And having covered family court for all these years, I can say that we are very well qualified to cover the infighting, and we're getting public records to explain this to you, to explain why we see all these injustices coming out of the family courthouse. So that's where we are right now. And my battery's running low. We're going to go over to, that was 40 minutes. I appreciate everybody being in. I'm now going over to some of the city halls because we're working on the Super Bowl coming to town. And I want to show you what's going on with the records that they're hiding in these towns, especially towns where we have people like Peter Ortiz in local government, and he is the city council member who tried to silence speech. And so now we're going to show you what the Streisand effect means. When people try to silence speech, we need to get a little bit louder. So thanks, everybody. And I know this was a little bit early. I'm going to leave it up until tomorrow, and then it goes to members only. So please like, subscribe, share, watch, screenshot, do whatever you want to remember this, or become a member, and it'll be available later on. And we're going to do some more videos dropping tomorrow as well. You guys, I'll go back. Anybody have any last questions just before I sign out? Whoever says protest peace, don't act like an animal in Minnesota. Hey, it's a very ripe situation here. We have Officer Donette, a San Jose police officer, Officer Brian Jeffries, we saw in Los Altos. These are the police officers that are here, and they could be inciting some of the things that go on around here in the next few weeks, just as divorce attorneys incite the litigation in family court. So, the issue of protesting is something everybody has to think about, and you have a First Amendment right to do it. But remember the fine line between your rights and when the courts are going to say you don't have those rights. Whoever said the mayor, I don't know what that's about. Appreciate the nice comments. I'm the one defaming people. Okay, well, I'm giving my opinion of what I see, and capture Dandy 5603. If oh, here I'm gonna flip. We got some sheriffs walking out. I'm gonna go over. I got to get this on regular video. So anyone who thinks I'm defaming them, you're free to sue me. And if you think my reporting is not accurate, you're free to go to another channel too. So I appreciate it, and I got to go. I will see you soon. I'm chasing some sheriff's deputies.